Yep, that's a rare one. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. A viewer of the show sent me this listing, and yeah, that's rare, all right. Let's see if it's actually authentic. First things first, this is not a body shape you're probably familiar with. But that doesn't mean Gibson hasn't produced something similar, like the 1959 Juniors and Specials and the Doublecut variation. The double cutaway Les Paul Standards, we've done some reviews and documentations of those. But none of them quite matched what we're seeing here, except for maybe the Gibson Longhorn. This was a limited edition. I actually did buy one a couple of months ago. I just need to make the review on it. But these were a unique one part of the Guitar of the Month series. You get your chalice/flower pot headstock, interesting small block inlays, and a unique double cutaway body shape. Needless to say, that's not what one of these is, but if you look down here, we do have a Kaler system on it, so it kind of makes me think of the Gibson Spirit series. But then we've got a weird control layout, something's been filled in there, you've got your toggle switch here, some sort of a mystery humbucker in the neck, but looks like a DiMarzio in the bridge with a whole bunch of added screws everywhere. And then we get to our headstock. Oh, isn't that just lovely? Upside down cross, crown, Gibson logo, totally a correct open book headstock shape. Yeah, if you haven't figured it out yet, this is not a Gibson guitar in the slightest. However, to somebody who doesn't know, it might be convincing enough. Because flipping it over to the back, it is a set neck construction. Appears to have started life as actually a string through guitar that's been filled in. But look at this, we actually have a volute that is very convincing, looking like a late 70s Gibson. And we even have a serial number, 706911961. Now, if you were going to try to read that, it would read as 1971, 69th day, production number 961. Yeah, that doesn't make sense because we didn't get this batch number until the mid-2000s. And we didn't have this style serial number in general until mid-1977. So something's not right there. You can actually see where they've spliced on a new area to our headstock. So somebody just stamped that for fun. And instead of made in USA, it's zip code. But there is something I appreciate on this. When they modified this guitar for the Kaler, they put the lock nut way above the nut. Usually you have that right here. But the reason why they did that is they didn't want to route through the volute. So they have a little bit less wood right here to go through. And then it makes a little happy smiley face guy. But if you look at your description, as is usual, they say it's unique and rare. But he does say he doesn't know anything about these guitars. He just buys and resells. But the real icing on the cake is right here. Sound produced by this acoustic guitar is of exceptional quality. So at $500, do I think it'll sell? Probably not. Kind of depends on what that pickup is, because there's not a whole lot of value in that one. I mean, there's some value in the parts. I just hope somebody doesn't bid it up too much thinking it's a real Gibson, because I'm not exactly sure what that would have started life as. But maybe somebody else's area of expertise might help us in the comments. I don't see why it wouldn't at least be worth $300. Next up, I was surfing on eBay and I found a very interesting part. It's a Gibson headstock veneer, and they want $110 for it. You see the custom ones all the time. Occasionally you'll find a limited edition, but you don't see the Les Paul standard version very often. And it's got that whole late 70s style logo to it. So I thought it was worth sharing, even if you just pick it up for desk decoration. Then continuing on our theme of confused sellers, let's see if we can help them out. The title says, Ebony or Walnut ES335 between the years 1970 and 1981. So first off, we can narrow those years down to the late 70s, early 80s because 335s have a coil split switch on them. So that's why you have two toggles. And it's cool that this one has the TP6 tailpiece. But zooming in here, yeah, that is definitely a walnut finish. They can get really dark and some guitars are hard to tell. For example, this one is difficult. Is this ebony or is it dark walnut? The easiest way to tell, at least on Les Paul Artisans, is to flip them over to the backside. True ebony ones are also ebony on the back. So if you see the natural wood grain on the back of your Artisan, that's how you know it's actually a dark walnut, because some of those do get incredibly dark. Now, most likely, I think that seller was just putting both in the title. That way they can pull two different keywords. Somebody will click it. If they're looking for the ebony, they might be able to get sold on the dark walnut. But that does matter to some people. Again, going back to the Artisan thing, if I can find a clean black Artisan, I would gladly add one of those to my collection. But next, a rather interesting one. So this is an Epiphone that caught my attention. Listed as a 2004. Do you notice anything different about this double neck? It won the wood grain lottery. It's got a figured body. It's like the one that I saw in half that was a Gibson. It had some maple figuring. So to see an Epiphone like this, I got really excited. But when I flipped over to the back, I realized that is not a wood grain lottery thing. This must have been a limited edition that actually had the flamed veneer top. That's cool. There have been a handful of fancy double necks made. They're usually called EDS 1275 Ultimas. So if you want something similar but within the Gibson branding, here's what it would look like. This one's not a veneer though, so it's actually going to continue along to the edges. And check out the mahogany wood grain on the back. There was one of these for sale a couple of months ago. We had talked about it on the show. I do regret not picking it up because the next time I do a double neck, I want it to be a fancy boy like this one because it's just so crazy. Like, double necks in general are really out there niche pieces, so to fancify one's just insane. Now, the one that was for sale didn't have the additional custom emblems on the headstock, and that's the reason I passed on it, because I wanted the super ultra fancy, because something like this needs documented. And if there was a double neck to keep in my collection, maybe it would be something like that. But could you imagine making a dragon double neck? That might be a bit too crazy. But when that sold 7 years ago, it was $17,500, which you gotta remember, the market at that time did not see guitars at that price point that were newer very often at all. So when you come back over to this one for $1,400, doesn't seem as bad, but now you can actually see there is a bit of a cherry edge border to it. It's because they're trying to hide the veneer top to make it look like it's actually made out of maple. And they do have the center seam line there to make it a little bit more believable. But the other reason I wanted to share this one is look where the tail pieces are. They're all the way down here, Jimmy Page style, and you've got the uncovered humbuckers. That's a pretty cool example. Although I don't know if the pickups came stock like that. And you know, now that I think about it, it's possible somebody moved the tail pieces down to make it more Jimmy in style, and then they added the veneer. But doing a bit more research, yeah, I was able to find a couple more exactly spec'd like this. So that's a cool limited edition Epiphone run. That's the thing about Epiphone. A long time ago, I had a series called Epiphone Adventure, and that's why I put all my Epiphone episodes into playlist-wise, because there's so many weird, freaky limited editions that people just don't talk about. I mean, that's what my show started with, but just with the Gibson guitars. And then I gathered a following and found more people to appreciate them. I just love drawing attention to small models that you might not have ever knew existed. But that is also a double-edged sword as far as asking prices of people on the used market. I'm noticing something else here. We got 1, 2, 3 toggle switches. Usually you have 2, one to select your neck, one to select the pickups that you're selecting. So I wonder if this one has a neck selector as well as what pickup you select. Next up, an interesting one listed for $5,000. I would tell you what store is listing this, but I just don't know. I can't figure it out at all. Yeah, went a little crazy there on their watermark. But that's not the reason I wanted to share this one. It's because it's blue. It's a Les Paul Elegant. If you're not familiar with these, they are chambered Les Pauls. Usually they're really gorgeous with their tops, and they get a compound radius ebony fretboard with the abalone inlays. And this is from the era that doesn't have the big custom shop medallion on the face of the headstock all done up in pearl, so it's a bit more traditional in that aspect. They can be a lot of fun. $5,000 is not the worst price we've ever seen on one of these. However, definitely still towards the top end, but totally possible. I do believe this finish is referred to as Peacock. But hey, here's a fun Sonex, $500. That is exactly what a Sonex is meant to be. Put a leopard print pick guard on it, paint it white. It looks like somebody's toyed around with the humbucker, so you might have something semi-what decent in it. Swapped out to metal knurled knobs. Oh no, it's got the mini toggle switch. That means somebody might have stole our dirty fingers out of it, because it might have been one of the higher end ones. Somebody has swapped our truss rod cover, probably installed a new decal on it even. I thought that looked a bit strange. Usually a Sonex will have this decal, but occasionally you can also find this one. But if you want to learn more about that, check out this episode when we documented one. Or maybe you would prefer the prototype that had the regular Gibson headstock. But anyways, we can see the body's been refinished. The headstock's likely also been redone. They just applied a normal decal to it. Flipping over to the back, yeah, it almost looks like they just used white house paint. Perfect for a Sonex. And somebody played that heavily, wore straight through the finish on the neck. Good for them. Although I'm surprised they never upgraded the tuners. But yeah, look at that sizable gap in the neck pocket. This seller, Nils Guitar Shop, fantastic description. I wish everyone would write descriptions like this. Everything I noticed, he has it already printed out, just in case somebody doesn't know all the details. And I'll leave you guys tonight with this one. Ouch. Poor 1981 Flying V. Looks like we got some sort of a Bill Lawrence humbucker thrown into it and a Kaler. You don't find cherry sunburst very often on a Flying V, so it kind of stinks that this one got routed up for a Kaler. Like, you can swap out humbuckers all day long because they didn't do any major modifications there. But once you route it for a Kaler, yeah, unfortunately, there's no going back there. But oh, look at our headstock. Instead of cutting the truss rod cover, they decided just to move it up. You know, hey, it still fits. It really doesn't look that out of place because the late 70s, early 80s headstocks are like super rounded over anyway. What's another little difference? Kind of reminds me of like a bear. You know, you got your black fur, but then like a white belly or any other similar animal. But I've got to say, I do not hate the cherry sunburst finish on this particular Flying V because it's that really nice dark heritage cherry color. This one was Kalamazoo made, yes indeed, 1981, 112th day of the year. Besides the pickup and Kaler, it actually does appear to be original. Oh wow, yeah. I appreciate the seller putting the photo in, that way you don't take it out and realize, yeah, maybe not the most professional installation job on that. Just because I don't like Kalers and many other people don't, doesn't mean you won't. You can get screaming deals on guitars like these if you don't mind the Kaler route. I mean, here we've still got an original 81 Tim Shaw, so that's nice. And I guess that ended up being a DiMarzio, not a Bill Lawrence. But here's the cool thing to know about these. If you don't want the trem system on it, you can actually just put your stop bar tailpiece on and the bridge and run it like a normal guitar. Yeah, you're gonna have a giant hole under there, but there's ways around that. You could have somebody fill it in, but it's always gonna show. Or you can do like what I did on this Les Paul Artisan. I had some leftover flooring plank and I just covered it up. Or you can just leave it raw and the guitar just has a story. Because something like this in all original condition, I would imagine it would be in that $6,500 to $8,000-ish range in today's market. But this one, $4,000. And usually these will sit on the market and you can make an offer and get a deal. But all right, Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode. Do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, consider subscribing. I post videos like this every day. And you might even enjoy this next one.